Right, let's actually get to the action of this week straight away because I have a feeling that by the time I upload this video that this game will literally start in a bit. As the time I am doing this video, there is only 3 hours left before this game actually kicks off, and I have a feeling that I might not get it in time before this game starts, but hopefully, fingers crossed, I can get this thing done and basically export it on my Adobe Premiere Pro and then upload it onto my YouTube video. And also, as you can probably tell, I decided to change it up a little bit in terms of the match preview. Instead of putting like side notes in each of these games, I actually put the stats for each team. Now, most of these stats doesn't kind of represent what each team are currently because, you know, some of these stats can be just kind of a little bit wacky, but then it doesn't really determine how the team is because either they have other commitments they have, like the CCL that they have to do, or the fact that they are missing a lot of guys from injury, or maybe it's because they give up so many goals early in the season that lately they started to catch fire, and you know, though that kind of goal differential kind of doesn't kind of replicate how good they are because they just look poor early on, and vice versa. And also, congratulations to DC United. You are this week's winner of the only team that gets a bye week. So congratulations for that. Enjoy your bye week until you play next week, which potentially you are going to lose again. Okay, maybe that's a little bit harsh on DC United fans. I actually don't know who they're playing next week. I gotta go check that out. But yeah, without further ado, let's actually talk about this game between Sporting KC versus Vancouver. So, Sporting KC are currently top of the table in the Western Conference. They have 4 wins, 2 draws, and 1 losses. They have scored 14 goals and concede 11 this season. They have a goal differential of +3. Vancouver is currently 3rd in the Western Conference. They have 3 wins, 1 draws, 3 losses, 8 goals score, and 11 goals allowed, and they have but they have a goal differential of -3. Now, this is going to be an interesting kind of game because I think Vancouver this season, you all know that the Whitecaps are a very good road team. You know, I think this is their 4th road games this season, and they've won 2 and only lost 1. And the reason why they have been a very good road team is because of the counter-attacking style. And another thing that I also learned about Vancouver over this weekend, and probably I should have learned this in the past couple of games, is that it's pretty clear that they really miss Kai Kamara in this team. And Kai Kamara, I think Matt Doyle kind of mentioned it in one of his MLS article that talks about how there is just no one player on each other team that this team kind of missed so much because what he does and the presence that he does, and pretty much he is acting like a plan B for Vancouver, and that of course is Kai Kamara. He is a very big attacking threat for Vancouver, and he's a very kind of creative kind of striker and also can put the ball into the back of the net. And now they don't have him anymore. It's no wonder why Vancouver doesn't have a plan B like they were last season, and it's no wonder why teams are figuring them out. And for Sporting KC, you know, I wonder what they're going to do in terms of this game. Are they going to basically do what other team has done to Vancouver, which is just let them have all the possession, just let them just try to kind of solve kind of this AP calculus kind of function of trying to go on the attack when they have majority of the ball, because it seemed like that is something that Vancouver just really struggled without Kai Kamara, and go it from there and trying to counter attack. And this team certainly has a lot of good counter attacking threats too. And also for Sporting KC, they do miss one of their key guy in this team also, and I think this is the 2nd week in a row that they're going to miss him, and that of course is their top goal scorer, Felipe Gutierrez. Although I don't think in that game against Seattle, I don't really think that, you know, they really miss him that much. I mean, I would say that they still kind of miss him, considering the fact that maybe he could have could have really kind of led that team to victory and score a crucial goal to get themselves all 3 points against Seattle. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like this team really kind of miss him. I feel like this team is just they look very, very, very decent. And yeah, I think Sporting KC has got this one in the bag. Even though Vancouver is very good on the road, it's pretty clear that teams have figured out Vancouver now, and without Kai Kamara on their team, this team is just like last season. And because teams have figured out their last season tactics, it is not going to go well for Vancouver. So I expect Sporting KC to get all 3 points, but you never know. Maybe the Whitecaps can do exactly what they did last season and maybe get something out of this. Next up, Montreal versus LAFC. Montreal currently 7th in the Eastern Conference with 2 wins, 0 draws, and 4 losses. They have currently scored 6 goals this season, but allowing 12. They have a goal differential of -6, which is one of the worst in the league, while LAFC currently is 4th in the Western Conference. They have 3 wins, 0 draws, 2 losses, 11 goals scored, 10 goals allowed, and they have a goal differential of +1. But notice the fact that the 10 goals that they allow was that 2-game stretch where they allow 4 against LAFC, that massive collapse in El Tráfico, and also concede 5 in Atlanta. But other than that, this LAFC team has looked pretty solid in terms of the defensive end, and certainly they have a lot of, well, I wouldn't say a lot, but they certainly have the firepower going on the attack with the dynamic duo of Diego Rossi and also Carlos Vela just continue to score goals on this team. And they're pretty much the 2 guys are just carrying this attack right now because they cannot stop right now. This is probably the best dual kind of attack that we have seen out of every single team here in the MLS. There is just no team that really relies on those 2 guys that just keep scoring the goals like they did. Now, for Montreal, obviously, it has been a rough couple of games. I mean, last week they lost 3-1 to the Red Bulls. They did show some resilience in the first half from going down to 1-0 and then tying the game 1-1 thanks to a spectacular goal from Jason Vargas. And speaking of Jason Vargas, that is basically the offense for Montreal. That is literally the only guy that can actually score on this team. Any other player on this Montreal team are finding very hard to try to put one into the back of the net. And I think now that now that teams will know that Jason Vargas is the dangerous man for Montreal, and that all they have to do is just kind of double team him and not let him get into a dangerous area in the box, Montreal is kind of screwed at that point. And it's going to be interesting to see how Remy Gard will kind of work behind that. And I think the 2 wins that they have was all because they just look very decent kind of on the counter attacking. So kind of what I'm saying about this is that they don't really look very good when they have the ball. They're kind of like Vancouver, where they just have no creativity whatsoever. Well, they actually do with Ignacio Piatti there, but still, this team is kind of what I expect with Montreal. I think this team is gonna kind of struggle because they have a lot of young guys on their team, and they did sort of got off to a pretty good start, but I expect LAFC to definitely win this. And also, this is the last game for LAFC on the row before they start their first ever home game and basically open Bank of California Stadium. Well, actually, it is already open, but that is their first ever game at Bank of California Stadium, and it's also the first event at Bank of California Stadium when they play against the Sounders. Right, next up, Houston versus TFC. Houston currently are in 9th in the Western Conference with 1 win, 2 draws, and 2 losses. They have a goal differential of +1 while scoring 9 goals and allowing 8 this season. Meanwhile, TFC currently only have 1 win, 0 draw, and 3 losses, and they're currently dead last in the Eastern Conference. Although the reason why they have not looked very well in the league so far is because they've been putting a lot of commitment into CCL. And speaking of which, I actually want to go back to that game just for a bit and just kind of do a little bit of clarification. So I saw that a lot of people commented on that video, and I read all your comments. And let me just kind of clarify that I'm not really disrespecting Chivas Guadalajara in any way possible. And I'm not saying that Chivas clearly got into the CCL final just by pure luck. I think that Chivas is definitely a very good team, and I think the reason why they got to this point is because they play negative football. They literally just play negative football, trying to grind teams out and potentially score 1 or 2 goals in each game and trying to grind the result. And so far, it has worked out pretty well in the CCL. And it seemed like they basically did the same thing against TFC in that game by playing that negative football style, and it has worked so far. But the only reason why I was so frustrated and angry about it is that I've seen this story before. I've seen this story so many times in the past that MLS team gets to the CCL final and they just completely bottle it. And it seemed like right now TFC is just get into a position where they're going to actually bottle this, and this will probably be the most painful CCL final loss by an MLS team because they were heavy favorites in this. All they had to do is just get the job done, and now they haven't. But that is just take nothing away with what Chivas has done so far in this CCL and getting to this point. So yeah, that's just a little bit clarification for those people that think that I'm actually disrespecting Chivas and the fact that I feel like they got lucky to get into the stage. No, I don't think they got lucky. Any teams that gets to a final doesn't really just, it's not just pure luck, okay? I mean, at some point, they might kind of get lucky in terms of getting a fortunate draw and stuff like that, which I don't think that's how CCL works. I don't think they actually have, a draw kind of thing going on. It goes through, they just go through brackets in terms of the CCL kind of playoff system. But, yeah, I mean, there is just no luck involved with Chivas getting into. They definitely deserve to get into this stage. So hope you guys understand about that a little bit more and just don't keep criticizing me about why it feels like I was disrespecting Chivas in that video. But talk about this game, obviously, just like last week, TFC is going to start their second squad. And I might as well just put TFC 2 versus Houston because that's what it is. And for Houston, they have to win this game. I mean, it's simple as that. They got to win this game. They are at home, which is something that they've been really relying on, although this season it doesn't seem like that is the case. Consider they already have lost twice at home, and it is not going very well for the Dynamos lately. I mean, ever since their Dreamland start in the first game of the season by beating Atlanta 4-0, this team has just keep going on a downhill, and part of it has to do with the fact that they have conceded some late goals to give up all 3 points, but it's just in general they are not playing very well so far this season. So I think Houston has to win this game. They got to take advantage of this. I mean, Colorado took advantage of it last week in terms of playing a TFC 2 team. Houston's got to do the same thing in this one. But yeah, next up, the Red Bulls taking on Chicago. The Red Bulls are currently 6th in the Eastern Conference. I'll tell you what, they do not look like they are currently 6th. I thought for sure that they are a little bit higher than where they are right now, but currently they have 3 wins, 0 draw, and 2 losses. They have a goal differential of +7. They have scored 13 while allowing only 6 goals. See what I mean by the fact that they should be a little bit higher, because the goal differential and the goal score and the allowed looks like something from a team that is currently near the top 3 of the table. But I think it's also due to the fact that the Red Bulls have played some of the fewest games so far that each team in the MLS had done. And for the Fire, they are currently 10th in the standing. They're second to last in the standings. They have 1 win, 1 draws, and 3 losses. They have scored 7 goals while allowing 9, and they have a goal differential of -2. But take nothing away from this 7 goal that they have scored. 3 of them came in the first week of the season, and ever since that, Chicago is just really struggling this season. And, you could say that injury plays kind of a part of how bad that this Fire team is, but I don't think that is the only reason why they are just so bad. It just feels like this team, in terms of what we kind of expect them to kind of regress because, David Accam moved on from this team, and the fact that, their center back line looks pretty weak this season, and so is kind of like their midfielder. I mean, guys like Dax McCarty and Bastian Schweinsteiger, which in recent week they actually have moved him in that sweeper role, which I don't understand why would the Fire would do that. Like, why would you move him in a sweeper role when that is not his natural position? And it just seemed like he doesn't fit comfortable of being in that sweeper role. So it is an absolute mess the Fire is in right now, and I have a feeling that it's going to just continue, considering the fact that they are in this very tough stretch right now where I think they have to play Atlanta and then TFC next after this Red Bulls game. And for the Red Bulls, obviously everything is in favor in this game. They're playing a struggling Chicago team. They're playing at home, which has been literally their bread and butter this season. They are just unstoppable this season at Red Bull Arena. And, I think they got all 3 of their wins at home too. So I expect the Red Bulls should win this. Unless Chicago pull off a very surprising result, the Red Bulls should easily get 3 points in this one. Next up, Columbus versus the Revs. Columbus are actually still only dropped down to 4th in the table, considering the fact that it's been a rough kind of last couple of weeks for Columbus. I mean, they do have the 3 wins because they got off to such a good start. They have 1 draw, but also 3 losses, and those 3 losses has been come in this stretch where they have lost 3 in a row. They scored 10 goals, allowed 6. They have a goal differential of +4. For the Revs, they have won 3, drawn 1, and also lost 2. They have a goal differential of +2. They have scored 9, conceded 7, and they're currently 3rd in the Eastern Conference. And I'll tell you what, if you are a Revs fan, and if I had to say that coming into week number 8 and you would be 3rd in the Eastern Conference and you would be right up there with the big boys like NYCFC, Atlanta, and also the Red Bulls, and also Orlando City, you would take it any day it's given. And despite the fact that the Revs did lose in the last game, which the Revs fans were not happy about that loss because they felt like they got robbed right near the end of the game with a penalty that was not given. This has been a very good start, and certainly one of the most surprising start for the Revs. I thought for sure that this team was going to just get buried in the bottom of the table in the Eastern Conference, but instead they have completely proved me wrong. And part of that has to do with the fact that the defense actually looked very decent for this Revs team, which in the beginning of the season we thought this is the worst defense in the league, and in the last couple of games they definitely don't look like the worst defense. In fact, you could say that they might have one of the best defense, and I don't know how that has happened because the defense is full of bunch of no names. And then going forward on the attack, I think the most influential player going forward on the attack besides Pinella has to be Diego Fagundes. I mean, the way that he is scoring goals for this team and just have good vision of seeing the field and basically always set up his teammates in a good position to score. He's been probably one of the biggest reason why the Revs are just doing so well early in this season. But unfortunately for the Crew, it has been pretty much the opposite in the last couple of games, and they are pretty much having the same kind of problem that Philly is currently have this season, and that of course is finishing. It has just been absolutely shocking finishing for Columbus, and some of that had to do with the fact that they have been unlucky. I think they had hit the post 7 times this season, which I think is the most by any other team. But at the same time, the finishing has been just absolutely dreadful for Columbus in the last couple of games. The last couple of games, they certainly by far had more of the chances of their opponent and more of the possession, and they just look like they're gonna get a win. But for some reason, they just cannot score right now because they just cannot finish. Guys like Jarzi Zardes just for some reason decided to go back to his old form and just could not finish if his life depends on. And Higuain, he's obviously, he has done a very good job setting the ball to some of those Columbus players to get into good spot, but even when they get into the good spot, they just cannot quite finish. That is the main problem for the Crew right now. And I don't think the defense is bad in terms of this team. I think the defense is one of the best, but if you cannot score, it doesn't matter how good your defense is. And right now for the Crew, they just cannot score right now. And if they cannot snap out of this against a very good New England team, this could be a big problem for Columbus going forward, and they gotta fix it. They have to start scoring, and I think the best way to do that is just score a goal. Like, if you can just score a goal in any given games, it will immediately pick up the confidence in terms of the team. I mean, if you score, everybody knows that if you score goals, it will instantly lift the confidence of this team. So if Columbus can score 1, I have a feeling that they can score 2 or 3, because that will certainly get their confidence and get this mini goal drought that they have to put to an end. Next up, Orlando versus the Quakes. Now, this is the first time ever this season that I actually did the match preview before the match preview of the Quakes game between the Quakes and Orlando City. And I will talk a little bit more about this game. I'm not going to mention a lot about it. And by the way, that video just comes after this one. I'm going to basically edit that video and upload it right after when this video is done. But basically, the Quakes is just really struggling. They are 10th in the league right now. They have only 1 win, 2 draws, and 2 losses. They have given up 10 goals and score only 9, and they have a goal differential of -1. While Orlando City, they have 3 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses. They have a goal differential of +1 also. They have scored 10 or scored 11 and also allowed 10. And like I said about the Quakes, they have just, the defense is the biggest problem with this team. And I think the last game there's probably adds to the problem with that. The midfield is starting to be a problem too, with the fact that we just look so lackluster in that midfield part. But the defense has been our Achilles heel throughout this season. I mean, even though 10 goals, you would think that that's kind of like on average of what each MLS team concede this season. Well, the thing is, it's been those goals that we have conceded have just been absolutely horrible goals they concede, and it's mostly because of defensive mistake that is easily fixable if you have a better back line. And for the Quakes, they got to figure that issue out, and really I had enough of this Quintana and Cummins kind of partnership, which, good news, that is not going to be a partnership that's going to happen in this game, because Cummins is suspended for an additional game for that incident that he had against the Union. And yeah, I just feel like we really need to start figuring out a way to just make our back line much better. And I think the only way to do that is that Michael Starhay can finally admit himself that, might as well just put Youngworth back in that center back role. Because if he's back in that center back role, I can guarantee you that this defense is going to be at least 10 times better when he's not there. And for Orlando City, it has been just these last couple of games. See what happens when you have guys that is finally more healthy and guys that actually started to show their potential. They, of course, are start winning. And for the Quakes, this is probably the worst case scenario. They're coming into this game really just struggling and just having a really bad form against basically one of the best team in terms of the form. And I'm just praying we get a draw out of this game. If we can get a draw out of this game, then I'll be very happy about it. But, you know, this is not looking good for the Quakes in terms of how it's pretty clear that we are just going to dig ourselves in a deep hole in the beginning of the season. And we better pray that when we do get those home games late in the latter part of the season, we better win those. But yeah, next up, Dallas versus Philly. Dallas are currently 5th in the Western Conference. They are one of the 2 teams that are currently have not lost a single game. They have 2 wins, 3 draws. They have scored 7, allowed 3, and they have a +4 goal differential. And Philly currently are in 8th. They only have 1 win, 2 draw, 2 losses. They have scored only 3 goals this season and allowing 6. And they have a goal differential of -3. And for Dallas, this is an absolute must-win for them. I mean, if they don't win this game against a Philly team that has just zero confidence right now, like this Philly team, it is just a factory of sadness in terms of what the Union are have to deal with the way that they not only cannot score, but it's also the fact that they have looked a little bit leaky on the defensive end too. And, you know, for FC Dallas, this is absolutely a must-win because they're at home. This is, I think, their 5th home game in 6 of the matches that they have played. No team in the MLS this season has played more home games that they had. And consider the fact that you look at the upcoming schedule for Dallas. I mean, you know, I know that Dallas fan will already know it, but you got games against LAFC and Galaxy where you have to play twice between that stretch between that stretch from April to June, and then you have to play against TFC, and also I think the next game they play is against NYCFC. I mean, it is an absolute murderous stretch that Dallas will have to deal with these next couple of games, and if they cannot get a 3 points again, just one of the weakest and probably the worst team right now in the league, this team is in deep trouble. And I know this season I've been kind of like talking down on Dallas and not giving them a lot of credit. Especially the defense actually looked very decent for Dallas this season. It's just the fact that they have dropped so many points at home, and the fact that it's gonna catch up to them eventually. You know, last game they kind of proved me wrong. The fact that they finally can get it done on the road, but at the same time you also got to get it done at home. And when you play against those tough teams on the road, and those tough teams like NYCFC and TFC, when they're back healthy, then it's gonna be a big problem for Dallas. So like I said many times, Dallas has to win this game, and for Philly, it is just going to be a bit more misery for you guys. I mean, I don't know what to say about this team. I mean, even though this team is currently in 8th, they should be in 11th right now, because they're just so bad right now. Like, things, the whole team, there's just nothing I can say good about their whole team. Their attack is just sputtering. Their midfield have absolute zero creativity, and their back line is very young and inexperienced and give up goals that could easily prevent it by a more experienced back line. So there's just nothing good to say about Philly. And yeah. Meanwhile, moving on to the next game, the Rocky Mountain Derby, or at least I think that's what it's called. I'm not quite sure if there is actually a actual name for the Real Salt Lake versus Colorado game, but it's definitely a derby. It's definitely a rivalry game because of geographics. And RSL currently is in 7th place. They have 2 wins, 1 draw, and 3 losses. They have scored 6 goals this season and also concede 14 this season. And I think they are the second, they are currently, or not second, but they have conceded the most goals this season by any MLS team. Or actually, no, my bad. Portland also conceded 14 this season. So they're currently tied with Portland as the team that conceded the most goals this season. And it's pretty clear that that is probably the biggest problem this season. It's the defense. It is just absolutely horrendous what RSL defense had so far early in this season. And they have a goal differential of -8. While Colorado have 2 wins, 2 draw, 1 losses. They've scored 9, give up 5, and currently have a goal differential of +4. So coming into this Rocky Mountain Derby, both of these teams are kind of like in a very similar position. Both of these teams, I think, are pretty mediocre. I mean, RSL, this season, it's been just hot and cold at times this season. I mean, at times they look like they can be very well and look like the team they were last season, and then there's just time where they look absolutely dreadful. And some of that has to do with the fact that they do had a couple of really tough and murderous kind of stretch where, you know, last game they had to go to NYCFC on a midweek after they play a home game, and unexpectedly, expectedly, they lost that one, and they lost that one big against NYCFC. But the good news for RSL is that they do get more rest than the Rapids. They have 10 days to prepare for this. And for the Rapids, you know, they are mediocre, but I'm pretty sure that they have exceed expectation. I mean, if you are a Rapids fan, and I would have told you that, you know, by week 8, you would have 2 wins, 2 draw, and 1 losses, and you would be right there on the bubble of the playoff line. You would just take it any given day, because this Rapids team coming into this season, it looked like it was going to be doom and gloom for them. And even with the new acquisition, it looked like it's going to be doom and gloom for this team. But like New England, they have definitely prove a couple of people wrong, and they have not dropped those points and not concede those late goals like they have done throughout a lot of time this season. This team could have been undefeated right now. This would have been one of the 3 teams right now that is undefeated, because their only loss this season was against New England, where they concede a late winner literally in the 93rd minute. So they could have easily be undefeated right now. But coming into this game, I think for RSL, they definitely needs to win this against their bitter rival. And they have a good record against Colorado at Rio Tinto Stadium. I think Colorado have only won 3 times during this kind of derby game and all-time matchup. And Colorado historically are always terrible on the road. Like 1 win in the last 19 kind of road games. It is just a very dreadful kind of run. So I expect RSL to win this. This will really help their morale boost by beating one of their biggest, if not their biggest rival in MLS. But yeah, maybe Colorado can pull off another interesting kind of upset in this game, and certainly continue this very unexpectedly good run they have in the beginning of this season. Okay, just 3 more games left. I know this has been a pretty long preview because there's been 11 games this season, and I'll try to speed it up a little bit. The Galaxy play against Atlanta United. They have 3 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses, currently second in the Western Conference. They have both given up and scored 8 goals this season and have a goal differential of 0. Atlanta currently have won 4 games, 1 draw, and 1 losses. They have scored 15 goals, concede only 8, and they have a goal differential of 7. 4 of the 8 goals that Atlanta conceded this season came in the first game. So ever since that first game, they have scored 15 goals and conceded 4 goals. And just like how when they have the goal celebration horn, which is sound like a freight train every time they do that, this team is just, it's literally a bullet express train that Atlanta United is running right now ever since that loss against Atlanta United. I mean, this team is just absolutely on fire. They're absolutely unstoppable right now. Like, you know, they just, this is kind of what I expected Atlanta in these last couple of games, and the way that they have been able to just completely destroy opponent at time, and also find a way to grind resort out, and also almost got a resort against the best team in the league, and certainly in that game against NYCFC. I would say that Atlanta was just a little bit better and certainly had the better opportunity to get all 3 points in that game, but this Atlanta team is just really loaded. And now the fact that they're going to get Ezekiel Borco, which I'm not quite sure if he's going to start in this game or not. I'm assuming he probably won't because, you know, in the last game he came off the bench. I still think that he needs 1 or 2 more games off the bench before he's really kind of like a starter. Since, you know, he just came back from an injury, and this is, in the last game was only his first MLS game, and this is like only his second one, so he needs to get some experience in terms of the MLS before you could kind of say that he can potentially be a starter for this team. And for the Galaxy, you know, they did win 1-0 against Chicago. What's interesting about the last game is that they actually put Zlatan and also Ola Kamara in that front too, and it's interesting. I mean, it's kind of, there was like a report how, you know, both of them were happy playing together up front, although the productivity certainly didn't quite show in this. And I know somebody also say about how Ola Kamara has he's been kind of struggling this season because he have only scored like 1 goal and stuff like that. Well, you know, I wouldn't say Kamara has struggled this season, but certainly at times he didn't look like the same player that he was again when he was still with Columbus. But it's also down to the fact that the Galaxy, since they have Zlatan now, and since they always want to feed the ball to him, maybe it's kind of like taking a couple of chances away from Ola Kamara. And, you know, for this Galaxy team, I won't worry about the attack. What I'm worried still with this Galaxy team is the defense, because this defense is still very kind of inconsistent. And although they only have conceded 8 goals this season, you know, at times this team could have easily conceded 10 or 11 goals. And the goalkeeping situation for this team with David Bingham, I think now LA Galaxy fan will realize why in the world did we decided to get rid of David Bingham, because it's been shown this season that he has done things that he did when he was with the Quakes last season, which is there's been time where he should have saved goals that is easily saved by any other keeper, and there's been times where he's very frustrating. He's kind of very frustrating to see in terms of his distribution. So, yeah, now you understand why David Bingham is not a very good goalkeeper, and I hope you enjoy his time at LA Galaxy. And every time when Bingham kind of make a mistake, it just puts a bigger smile in my face. Not just because of the fact that the Galaxy is our biggest rival, but it's because, you know, you decide to go to LA and you want to prove yourself that, you know, I can definitely be much better than what you kind of expect from me. And it turns out that was not the case. It seemed like David Bingham is the same David Bingham that he was when he was with the Galaxy. But yeah, moving on, the last 2 games, Portland versus NYCFC. Portland are currently 11th, second to bottom in the Western Conference. They only got their first win last week. 2 draws and 3 losses. They have scored 9 goals, allowed 14. They have a goal differential of -5, while NYCFC is basically the hottest team and pretty much the most unstoppable team right now besides Atlanta United. 5 wins, 2 draws, 0 losses. They're only one of the 2 teams that is still undefeated this season. They have scored 16 and only allow 6. They have a goal differential of +10, which is the best in the league. And yeah, I don't know how in the world will Portland able to deal with this very good NYCFC kind of attack. I mean, 14 goals, like I said before, is tied with the most that they have conceded this season. And it's pretty clear that throughout this whole season, we knew that they were going to have one of the worst defense in the league, because that defense is just hot garbage right now. And now they have to deal with David Villa, Jesus Medina, and also Maxi Morales in terms of that front three. Yeah, this is not going to be a very kind of good thing for Portland. Although the good news for Portland is that they are playing at home for the second game in a row, and they finally got that first win under Giovanni Savarese, which certainly will build a morale boost in this game. But I just think that with the way they play against Minnesota in the last game, and they just don't look like a team that just can finish a game without having to be worried in the last 15 minutes of them giving up late goals and potentially concede either all 3 points or drop 2 points at home or on the road. And I just feel like NYCFC just going to get all 3 points in this. I just still think that Portland, there's still big problem with this Portland team right now, and this is gonna be very tough for them to get a resort on them. Not get a resort on them, but get a resort to maybe get 1 or 3 points against NYCFC. But we'll see how that's gonna go. Also, this is the one of the 2 Sunday matchup that's gonna happen this weekend. This actually is the last game of this weekend. The first one for this Sunday matchup is Seattle versus Minnesota. Seattle is dead last in the Western Conference and pretty much dead last overall in the MLS kind of standings, because they are the only team in the league that have 0 wins this season, and they have drawn 1, lost 3. They have only scored 2 goals, which is the fewest in the league. They have conceded 7 with a -5 goal differential. While Minnesota currently is in 8th place. They have 2 wins, 0 draw, 4 losses. They have scored 8 goals. They have conceded 12, and they have a goal differential of -4. But Minnesota has been struggling in these last couple of games. I think this is now 3 straight losses that they are coming off of this game. And for the Sounders, if they don't win this game, then you will know for certain I will start dropping them way down in the power rankings, because this Sounders team right now, if they can get a win against Minnesota, and since this game is at home, then it's pretty clear that this team is just god-awful. Although last game against Sporting KC, they did show signs of some very good kind of promise in that game. They actually looked like a Seattle team that were the team that pretty much made the playoffs last season and had that good run to the MLS Cup final. But the question is, can they sustain that? Can they do it against Minnesota? I'm pretty sure they will, because Minnesota right now is just, it's a very bad team. And, even with Darwin Quintero now on that team, and he scored an absolute amazing debut goal that I was very surprised not many people talk about it. I mean, I feel like maybe this is what Minnesota is. Minnesota is always a team that not a lot of people usually kind of like talk about them, even though there's like a very kind of big thing happen, like Darwin Quintero getting a debut goal. It's not a very big mention, and I feel like it should have been a big mention, because that was an amazing debut goal that Darwin Quintero is. The way that he just absolutely burned Diego Chara in that game, it's just so amazing, and he's certainly going to be the catalyst in terms of this attack. But I just still think that Minnesota just still have so many other problems, and most of the problem is due to the fact that they just don't have players that is up to MLS standard level. They have a lot of guys that is, I would say, very good if they were in the USL, but in terms of MLS, yeah, that's obviously a different animal. But yeah, that of course is my overly long match preview done and dusted. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think? What do you think of all these games, and give me your prediction for all 11 of these games. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.